Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that Christmas never existed. No Bethlehem, no manger, no star angling across the dark like a silver thread, no Mary pondering, no Joseph trusting, no shepherds startled awake by glory. Imagine the calendar without its hinge, history without its interruption, time itself running on like a long road with no inn, no door, no light. Now walk with me through a world without him. The streets of Jerusalem are the same stone and dust, the same bargaining voices, the same Roman boots pressing down on necks and consciences. Taxes still bite. Injustice still breathes. But there is no rumor of a carpenter's son with eyes like morning and hands that mend not only wood, but people. There is no voice saying, "Come to me, all who are weary." Weariness is a private thing here. It sits on the small of the back and in the corners of the spirit, and no one invites it to lay itself down. A blind man wakes to the same dark he slept in. He has learned the shapes of voices, the weight of footsteps, the tilt of coins hitting the ground. He has never learned the color of mercy. No one smears mud on his eyes and tells him to wash and see. He grows old in night. A man who cannot walk listens for kindness in the shuffle of the crowd. None comes. There is no command to rise, take up your mat. He dies with the mat still beneath him, the way branches die, still reaching for sun. A woman dragged from a bedroom into a courtroom of dust and rage stands alone. There is no rabbi who stoops to write in the earth as if the ground itself could carry our indictments for us and dissolve them in the wind. There is no voice asking, "Where are your accusers?" There are no footsteps leaving, only stones arriving. Without Jesus, the temple curtain remains a wall. The holy place is not a home, but a warning. Smoke rises from altars, and the smell of sacrifice is daily as bread. Men bring lambs with steady hands and trembling hearts. They leave wondering if God's ledger is satisfied for another hour. There is no cry of "it is finished." There is only "it continues." Without Jesus, Rome is not a temporary empire, it is a template. Power learns it can baptize itself and call the water holy. The poor learn to lower their gaze. Lepers learn to live in echoing valleys without names. Sinners learn to speak softly to their shame and never expect an answer. Children learn to be small for safety instead of small for wonder. We would still have sayings, of course. The philosophers would go on polishing their phrases like stones in a river. The prophets would still thunder about justice and truth, like lightning without rain. The priests would still tally and tend, whispering old formulas like lullabies you sing to a fever you cannot break. But we would never watch God kneel with a towel. We would never learn that the infinite has knees. We would never see tears on the face of the Almighty at a friend's grave, never hear forgiveness asked for the men hammering nails into his wrists. We would not know that heaven can whisper in a human voice and that this whisper can steady a storm. Without Jesus, grief becomes the final vocabulary. Tombstones are full stops. Cemeteries are the most honest cities. Every stone says, "This is the end." There is a morning, somewhere, where Mary does not run to a garden because there is no garden empty enough to surprise her. There is no angel asking, "Why do you seek the living among the dead?" Because all among the dead are dead. There is no gardener saying her name like a key turning a locked heart. There is only the slow arithmetic of decay and the gray of ordinary, durable despair. And you? What becomes of you in this world? The guilt you wear like a shadow, there is no cross to throw it onto. There is law, and there may be remorse, and sometimes there is amnesia that looks like peace, but there is no Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, and so the world must carry it. The bitterness you keep like a blade under the mattress. There is advice to put it down, but there are no hands pierced for you that can pry it from your fingers and replace it with bread. The fear you swallow in the night. Someone might tell you to breathe, to meditate, to count blessings, to name 5 things you can see and 4 things you can touch and 3 you can hear, but there is no voice that steps into the storm and speaks to the wind that lives inside your ribs. Peace, be still, and makes the water lie down like a dog that understands love. Without him, love is a beautiful idea that keeps breaking on the rocks of our limits. Mercy is a guest we hope will visit. Justice is a word we repaint whenever it chips. Forgiveness is a rumor that comes and goes with the weather. Holiness is a mountain we draw on maps, but never climb. He came. He came so quietly that only shepherds and stargazers noticed. But the quiet was only the first sentence of a thunder that would rewrite the sky. He came through the narrow door of birth, so he could stand in every doorway we would ever face: poverty, hunger, misunderstanding, betrayal, pain, death, and declare, "I know this corridor. I will walk it with you." He came low so he could lift. He came human so he could heal humanity from the inside. He came and touched lepers. Our diseases learned his name. He came and spoke to storms. Weather learned to listen. He came and sat with sinners. Shame forgot its script. He came and told stories where God is a father who runs, a king who cancels debts, a shepherd who counts to one. He came and obeyed where we would not, so that obedience could be a song instead of a sentence. He came and died, not as a failed plan, but as the only plan that could hold the weight of our wreckage without breaking us. He came and rose, and morning itself learned a new color. Because he came, the curtain tore. Access is a word that now smells like incense and sounds like singing. We do not send representatives into the Holy of Holies. The Holy One comes searching gardens for us at dawn. Because he came, the cross turned from a Roman machine into a mercy tree. We do not hang there. Our debt does. Because he came, the tomb is now an argument he already won. At every funeral, grief is real, but it is no longer sovereign. Death is terrible and temporary, like winter in a world that has learned the name of spring. Because he came, love is no longer theory, it is blood and bread. Mercy is no longer rumor, it has wounds. Forgiveness is no longer advice. It is a person standing in front of us with hands open and a history that did not flinch. Holiness is no longer a mountain we never climb. It is a path where he walks ahead, turning back to say, "Follow me." And when we stumble, he kneels again, because that is what he does. Now listen, this is not to say the world would be entirely dark. Even in moonless nights, someone lights a lantern. Even without a shepherd, some sheep find one another and make a circle. But how many would wander off cliffs? How many wolves would learn our names? How many kings would keep crowns they do not deserve because no one ever taught us the weight of a crown laid down? Think of the sick wards of history, plagues that turned cities into whispering fields. Think of the children left at the edges of roads, the girls sold as solutions to debts, the boys who learned to raise their hands before they learned to write their names. Now subtract the hospitals built because his people heard him say, "Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me." Subtract the orphanages, the rescue missions, the abolitionists who heard, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, to set the oppressed free," and believe the sentence might be contagious. Subtract the movements that said, "Love your enemies," and in so doing confused war long enough for truce to be born. Subtract the martyrs who bled like seeds and the saints who stayed when running would have been safer. What remains is a world that still has kindness, because God made humanity in his image and his fingerprints do not wash off, but kindness that runs out faster, like a river in drought. Without his parables, we do not know that soil matters, that seeds wait for hearts, that prodigals can still be sons even when the pig feed has their names on it. We might still forgive, but rarely for long, and almost never first. We might still give, but seldom without a ledger. We might still pray, but to a ceiling with no ears. And yet, here is the strangest truth. We do not live in that world. And you, what becomes of you because he came? Your guilt. He carries it as if it were a lost child, not a crime scene. Your bitterness. He trades it for water that does not run out. Your fear. He meets it in the night and does not argue. He abides until morning, and by then the fear has grown bored of shouting at a presence that will not leave. Your wounds. He does not rename them victories to speed up the story. He traces them with his own and teaches them to become doors for someone else's healing. Your calling. He does not hand you a job description. He gives you his spirit and a map called neighbor, and suddenly the world is smaller and holier than you imagined. Look around you with new eyes. Hospitals still do holy work because his shadow falls on their thresholds. Courts sometimes find courage because his words still echo in our architecture. Schools still search for truth because truth once wore shoes. Marriage has a grammar. Singleness has a dignity. Work has a liturgy. Rest has a commandment. Meals have a memory. Sorrow has a companion. Joy has a future. And when you ask, "Where is God?" you do not point upward in hope. You point to a history, a manger, a mountain, a cross, a garden, a table where bread breaks and wine speaks and sinners are called saints while their hands still shake. You point to a people, imperfect, often confused, sometimes offensive, occasionally radiant, who bear his name and learn, slowly and truly, to love as they have been loved. You point to your own life, and if you cannot yet see him there, you whisper a prayer he taught us. Come. What if Jesus had not come? Then silence would still be in charge. Then law would still be louder than love. Then graves would still be right about everything. Then God would be an idea too heavy to lift and too far to touch. Then we would still be alone. But he did come. This is the great scandal and a great relief. God became one of us without ceasing to be God, so that we could become his without pretending to be good. He took on flesh not to cosplay humanity, but to cure it. He walked our roads so our roads could find their way to God. He ended on a cross because our endings had to be rewritten. He began again from a tomb so all our beginnings could become honest. So here is the invitation that arrives at the end of the world that might have been. Live as if he came, because he did. Live as if mercy is a fact, because it is. Live as if forgiveness is the doorway you keep avoiding, because it is the only doorway big enough to fit your heart through. Live as if death is a liar, because it is, and it knows it. Live as if every stranger might be the road to Emmaus, and every table might be the upper room. Live as if the church is not a museum of the competent, but a hospital of the forgiven. Live as if the kingdom is not later, somewhere else, for someone better, but here, arriving, one surrendered yes at a time. And when darkness argues, as it will, do not debate long. Walk to Bethlehem in your memory and the garden in your hope. Remember the hands that healed and the feet that walked water and the eyes that found you long before you knew you were lost. Remember the cry that shook the world from a hill outside the city, not defeat, but completion. Remember the stone that learned to roll. Remember your own name on his lips. Because he came, your story will not end in the middle. Because he came, the worst thing is not the last thing. Because he came, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has opinions, but no authority. So lift your head. The manger stands. The cross stands. The tomb is empty, and the road ahead is not lonely anymore. Amen.